Something really unbelievable has happened here in the Abbey Wood over the last number of years. The Meitheal community in Killarney, the Meitheal have come down each Tuesday and Sunday, and they've worked to clear rhododendron from the floor of this wet woodland area in Killarney National Park, and lo and behold, we can see the wet woodland again. We can see the floor of the woodland again. We can see the bluebells starting to come. We can see the Killarney River, which was covered over with foliage, and no trout or salmon would come into it because it was so dark. Now they'll be coming up, they'll be spawning in the river. We'll get kingfishers, we'll get herons, we'll get cormorants coming into the river. So the whole ecosystem has been restored due to the fantastic work that the Meitheal are after doing here in the Abbey Wood, in these 14 acres of a most beautiful ecosystem, which is now back to favourable conservation status. And National Parks and Wildlife Service have contributed very recently by bringing in a groundbreaking machine, which would be a mulching machine, to mulch the standing dead rhododendron which the Meitheal have killed. So we're contributing only a small way to the amount of work that the Meitheal have done, but it's a fantastic example of a community and National Parks and Wildlife Service project which has really strong and fantastic benefits for nature conservation, biodiversity and wildlife in Killarney National Park.
Welcome to the Abbey Wood. It's a 30-acre site, and it stretches from Muckross Abbey, 15th century Muckross Abbey, to the main road here at Muckross. The Abbey Wood is 10% mixed woodland, 90% native wet alluvial woodland, and the wet alluvial woodland is becoming quite scarce throughout Europe. There's quite a lot of alder surrounding the river, and the remainder of the woodland you have a lot of willow in the wet areas. In the more drier areas you have some ash, a lot of birch and a sprinkling of Scots pines in the drier areas. It also has a big area of bluebells in the spring, that particular part of the wood, and it's the largest area of bluebells in the park actually at that time of the year. The big problem in the Abbey Wood is that it's 90% engulfed in a dense infestation of rhododendron. The Meitheal plan, with the full cooperation of the management of Killarney National Park, is to free the woodland of rhododendron and allow the woodland to regenerate naturally. Just to give you a quick history of Rhododendron ponticum, it was brought into Britain and grown from seed in Kew Garden, as far as I know, and planted outside, and the frost killed it. The gardeners at the time then crossed the ponticum with a couple of other species of rhododendron. They ended up with a plant that I call Rhododendron Frankenstein because nothing kills it. It was introduced into Ireland in the 19th century and grown as an ornamental plant in the great gardens surrounding the landlord mansions. Fire won't burn it. The animals won't eat the leaves because there's a toxin in the leaf of the rhododendron that will kill the animals. Frost, drought, it's almost an indestructible plant. Each flower that you see in rhododendron during the May and June will go on to produce 3,000 to 7,000 seed, and a mature rhododendron bush can produce up to 1 million seed. The big waxy green leaf of rhododendron reflects light and allows very little daylight to penetrate through to the woodland floor underneath the plant. So nothing survives to any great degree. The plants are gone, but all the associated bird life, insect life and small mammal life, they're gone as well. If rhododendron is not controlled, the woodlands really are effectively doomed to die. A complete and absolute ecological disaster. The old method was to cut the green living Rhodo and burn the cut brash. The stumps were still alive, the Rhodo stumps, and they'd put up multiple stem regrowth, and that then was foliar sprayed. There was so much regrowth from the cut stumps, only maybe a short distance between each stump, that you were effectively spraying the woodland floor, and there was a lot of runoff from the leaves onto the ground and into the water courses, etc. And a huge area around the target plant was killed off as well. Eventually I came to the stem injection method. You don't cut the plant down, you inject the herbicide into the transport system of the plant. The plant takes up water, so up goes the the herbicide as well. And it's only a tiny amount of herbicide, but yet there's no collateral damage. And we saw that from plants where we treated on the mountainsides that were surrounded by heather, where we stem injected the plants and nothing was affected surrounding the plant. Initially, it was a 25% solution. I got it down to a 14% solution, and that still killed the plants 100%. So we kind of literally halved the amount of herbicide that we used, and that to me was a bit of a victory as well, in a sense. If it's done right, you'll get 100% kill in the plant. No regrowth from the roots, the stumps afterwards, 100% effective. For any rhododendron management, you must have a strategic plan in place. Map the area, clear your mature rhododendron, exclude the deer, and then prevent the site from becoming reinfested with rhododendron from the seedlings. The saw that I use is a medium-sized saw, and there's a 16-inch bar. You can cover a huge area in one day, and it's perfect for the job. There's about 4 cuts that I use. The V-shape one, I use side cuts plus a plunge cut. I use plunge cuts that don't penetrate through to the other side, which act as a well. You can do that if you feel comfortable enough doing it. And you can also make a plunge cut that exits on the far side. You're getting into the transport system of the plant, and the plant is taking it up. Eventually the plant will die, obviously, and this has proved to be 100% successful. The herbicide that we use is about a 13% solution. It's about 7 parts water, 1 part glyphosate. Best time for treating really is from about March until August. During those months you get a fast acting result. You get leaf fall maybe after 4, 5, 6 weeks. We also use a marking dye because the solution is clear, and so you can see really what you've done. The dye marks your progress, so it's essential to have the dye in there as well. This applicator holds 1.25 litres of the solution, and you can do many hundreds of stems with that 1.25 litres. So the amount of herbicide you're using per stem is minute. When the Rhodos completely died back, I would give it 10 to 12 months before I would cut the dead Rhodo, give it a chance for the roots to be totally killed off. So after we've stem injected the rhododendron, the plants die back, and then the Meitheal comes in at that stage. The Meitheal outings are on a Tuesday and a Sunday morning, and it's from 9 o'clock until 12:30, and the amount of work that's done in those sessions is amazing. We remove all the dead standing plants, and we stack all the dead brash. I think everyone gets enjoyment out of the work that they've done, but also it's a social outing. When we have a break at 11 o'clock, when we have the sausages and rolls and the tea, and then there's a bit of crack. There's a great mix of older people, younger people, male, female. There's great camaraderie between the members, and we're always looking for more volunteers. The more people we have, the better. What we can see here now is we have a flail mower in operation, and this is something new in our arsenal against the fight against rhododendron. So what the flail mower is doing, he's breaking up the dead rhododendron in areas where there's a high density of small diameter rhododendron, which will be very difficult to clear by chainsaw and by hand as such. So the result of the flailing is you get this mulch over the woodland floor, all the broken rhododendron stems you can see over the woodland floor. And the advantages of that is that it will prevent rhododendron seed from germinating. I suppose it has a disadvantage. It will also suppress natural regeneration, but that we get around that, and the main thing is that it's suppressing the germination of the Rhodo seed, and that's an important factor in any of the sites where we clear rhododendron. This is an area now in the Abbey Wood that we've already cleared of rhododendron. The woodland floor is as bare as you'd get it, and what we do is, after the dead Rhodo is cut down, we create what are known as dead hedges. They are a nice wildlife habitat in their own right, but there is that risk of fire. We spaced them quite a distance apart to avoid fire transferring from one to the other. The first step in the process is remove all the seed source, remove all the mature rhododendron. Then you need to come back every 3 to 5 years and you'll find rhododendron seedlings. They're all produced from seed that germinated from the mature rhodo that stood here at one time. It might be for a period of 20 years or more that you come back and you'll still find rhododendron seedlings. At this stage they can be pulled. The bigger plants, if they get much bigger than that, as well as pulling up big lumps of soil, you'll most likely break the plant and it will just grow back again. If you don't follow up on this stage of the process, you'll lose the battle, and maybe that's where it has been lost over the years. The maintenance of your site to prevent it from reinfesting is hugely important. Here we are now on a site. The Mountain Meitheal again cleared the site. It's at the Blue Pool woodland, or the Killarney woodland, and it was just absolutely, totally densely infested with big mature rhododendron, and you could hardly see the water channels. At that time the road was stretching out over the water, but the road was cleared. This is a good example of the devastating effects of a dense infestation of rhododendron. This was like a thin area at one time, a kind of a wet habitat area, and it had a lot of the giant tussock sedge, and you can see the tussocks here, look, that built up over, it might have taken 100 years for the plant to start growing. Leaves die back and it builds up this pile, this tussock, and you get the grass growing out of the top of it, or the sedge, and the rhododendron shaded out those plants completely, wiped them out. They look like tree stumps now, but they're in fact tussocks built up by the greater tussock sedge over many, many years, maybe 100 years, and the dense infestation of rhodo, the lack of light, just shades out everything under it. And this is a good example of it. It's a devastating dark invader of our woodlands. And but this is a great example of natural regeneration and how it occurs so freely. You don't have to plant anything, and birds disperse the seed, and if you have seed source on site, all the better. We're still doing the maintenance work as regards seedlings. The important thing about this site, as compared to other sites, is that the deer are excluded. The regeneration here is just amazing, and it's just typical of what can happen if you clear the rhodo, light gets in, you have the seed source around, you have some mature trees, the alder generation, oaks, mountain ash, all the pioneering stuff. You have rubus, bramble, you've even bog bean in the wet areas. If you allow deer in even after 10 years, they'll demolish most of what's there. You've got to get the trees up to a mature state to restore our biodiversity. That's what it's all about, you know. What the Meitheal are doing is great conservation work. We have the strategic plan. We know what works, we know what methods to use. The more people we have on the ground, the more work that gets done. The more members we have, the better. And we ask people if they have any bit of time on a Sunday morning or a Tuesday morning, you'll be so proud of what you achieve. There's great satisfaction in the work, I would say, because you're restoring nature. None of this would be possible without the cooperation of the National Parks and Wildlife Service, who have been very helpful in every way. I must say a big thank you to our main sponsors, the trustees of Mucker's House, who sponsor all our equipment, and without that we wouldn't be able to function. So for them, a huge thank you from the Meitheal.